Welcome to my Santa Gnome crochet along. If you would like to see any details regarding what kind of yarn I'm using or what the plan is for the overall Santa Gnome, I will have linked in the description box my Gnome of the Month video for December, where I went over all of the yarn I would be using and my plans for the gnome. To begin, we're going to grab our red yarn, a stitch marker, or a piece of yarn if you're going to use that as a stitch marker, and your crochet hook. I am using a 4.25 with my retro velvet yarn, but you can use whatever kind corresponds with the yarn that you've chosen to use. So if you're using a worsted weight yarn, you could use a 4.25 still, or I usually like to use a 3.5, but I do use a 4.25 sometimes. So it's really just up to you. You just want your stitches to be nice and tight so that you don't see the stuffing popping through. And to begin, we are going to make a magic circle. If you don't know how to make a magic circle, I'm going to kind of show you slowly, but if you need help with it, I will link in the description a tutorial for how to do a magic circle where I slow it down and really make sure that I show you. And then once we have our magic circle, you can pull that little tail out and hold the tail along with the circle and work over both. We are going to single crochet 10 stitches into our magic circle, and I recommend right off the bat to put a stitch marker in, because especially if you're using velvet yarn like I am, you will find that the stitch marker is absolutely irreplaceable. Okay, and then go ahead and work the rest of those 10 single crochets right over your tail and over the edge of your magic circle. So there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And once you have all 10 single crochets, you can go ahead and grab this yarn tail from your magic circle and pull it closed. And if you're working with velvet yarn, it may be give you a little bit of traction or a little bit of difficulty pulling at first. Just, be gentle with it and it'll close up nice and tight. Pop that first stitch marker out and put a single crochet into that first stitch. And then go ahead and replace that stitch marker in the first single crochet that you just created, and place another single crochet in the same stitch. And this is going to be an increase round, so every single crochet is going to get 2 single crochets in it. And if you would like to keep count of how many stitches you're doing, you can. So this is my 3rd stitch I'm crocheting into. Sometimes I'll count like the stitches I'm crocheting into instead of how many stitches are in the round. Like I'm in the 4th stitch right now. And you can count it either way. This round is going to have 20 single crochets. So as long as you end up with 20 single crochets at the end of this round, you will be good to go. And if the stitches are difficult for you to see if you're using velvet yarn, you'll kind of fall into a rhythm because, the stitches are the same distance apart as you go around. So you'll just kind of start to get a feel for how close they are together, but you can always use your fingers to kind of feel for the stitches. Also, this type of yarn, when you're working with it, is really forgiving of mistakes. So if you miss a stitch or you put your stitch in the wrong spot, you're not really going to notice. So don't feel like it's like super high pressure. As long as you are close enough to fudge it, then you're not going to really be able to tell. So as long as you have like basically 20 stitches, when you're doing the next round, if you find that you're off a little bit, you can probably stick an extra stitch in here and there, and you're not going to be able to tell. And if you accidentally crochet kind of in between a stitch or something, you're not going to be able to tell. So just try to keep that in mind if it stresses you out working with this type of yarn where it can be a little bit more difficult to see your stitches. And I'm going to pull some yarn, and then the next round is going to be single crochet 1 increase, and that is going to be the repeat for the round. So I'm just going to pop my stitch marker out and put that first single crochet of the round in there, and I will continue to just pop my stitch marker out and replace it at the beginning of every round, because it is just so much easier to have that there as a little extra security. And then the next thing I'm going to do is increase, because our increase is our second stitch, and that's just 2 single crochets in the same stitch. And then we're just going to repeat that. So 1 single crochet and an increase. 1 single crochet and an increase. And we're just going to repeat that all the way around. And you can choose if you would like to keep count of your stitches. This round is going to have 30 stitches at the end. Or you can just continue that pattern all the way back to your stitch marker. And we are currently working on the bottom of our gnome. If you were curious what part we were working up, the butt of our gnome. And it's going to be worked all the way up to the body. Like it works up from the bottom to the top. And it's like one continuous piece. So just continue to work your alternating single crochet and increase all the way back to your stitch marker. Moving on to round 4, we are going to do 1 single crochet in the first stitch. And then we are going to do 1 single crochet in the second stitch. And then an increase in the third stitch. And that is going to be your repeat for the round. It is 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, and an increase. So continue all the way around for this round, doing 2 single crochets and an increase, 2 single crochets and an increase. And that is going to give you a total of 40 stitches at the end of the round. And once you have completed round 4, we will move on to round 5, and we are going to single crochet 4 and then do an increase. And that will be the repeat for the round. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to crochet 2 into the next stitch, which is an increase. And then I'm just going to start that pattern right over again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and increase. And that is going to be your repeat for round 6. You will have 48 stitches, round 5, and you will have 48 stitches at the end of the round. In case this is your first time working with velvet yarn and you struggle to see where the stitches are, I want to take a minute to kind of show you. So let me grab a contrasting color. So each of these little shapes, I guess, ovals, this is the fronts of your stitches, and those, are each a single crochet. And right here is the top of your stitches, which is what you crochet into. So each of these little bumps. And like I said, you'll get more used to it the more that you work with it. I know they're a little less defined than working with worsted weight yarn, like acrylic yarn or cotton yarn or something like that. But that is where your stitches are, and that's what they look like. Also, you can just sort of push your crochet hook. So if you push your crochet hook into the spot where you know that your next stitch should be, it's just going to glide right through. And if you're in the right spot, it'll just very easily push right through. So hopefully that helps. All right, and moving right along, we are going to be doing a back loop only round. So, keeping your work with this part that doesn't have your magic circle tail facing you as the part facing you, and the magic circle tail side facing away from you, we are going to go into just the back loops of these next stitches. So go into that back loop only and do a single crochet. And put your stitch marker back in. And we are going to do a back loop only single crochet in every stitch around. This is going to be us transitioning into the body, since we're currently working on the bottom. So just a single crochet in the back loop only. And that's really important that you do the back loop only. That's going to help cup up so that we can start working up on our body. So you'll see if you're doing it right, you'll have a little bit of a ridge forming right here. And these are your front loop onlys that you're not working into, and they're just kind of right now building up on the bottom. But as we work, this will cup up. So I'll just continue to do back loop onlys for a little bit and let you see in case you need a little extra help with where the back loop onlys are. So basically you're just going to see that your stitch is here, but instead of going to the front and pushing through the whole stitch, you're going to go to the top of the stitch and push into the middle of it so that you only grab that back loop. And then just do your single crochet per normal. Okay, so here's like the little V, and you're going to push into the middle and just grab the one loop. Push into the middle of the stitch and just grab the one loop. So go ahead and continue that all the way around until you have completed all of the stitches as a back loop only single crochet. All right, and once you have worked up your 8 rounds, it should look a little something like this and be nicely cupped up now and forming up our body for our gnome. And that magic circle tail can just go right in the middle. I wanted to take a second here to show you guys some options for weighing it down if you would like to weight the butt of your gnome down. So we are going to start slowly decreasing towards the top of our gnome. So we're going to start kind of cinching in. So if you would like to glue anything to the bottom, you probably would like to do that now. So that's why I'm going to stop right here for a second and tell you like some ideas that you could do. So for one, you don't have to glue anything to the bottom. You can always just sit whatever it is in and put your stuffing on top. One idea, and I've done this before, is you can use these little organza bags. You can get these on Amazon for super cheap, and they come in different sizes. These are the smallest ones, but they do come in bigger sizes as well. And I'll take one out of here and just show you what it looks like. So you can take these, you can take these and you can put rice in them or beans in them. Or you could use, there's like little polyfill beads that you can buy at craft stores. You could really use just about anything that you can think of that you have, maybe that you don't need. Even beads. If you have like, say, some beads that you're not using and you're like, oh, what can I do with these? You could use that. So anything that you really want to, but I've used rice before to weigh down little legs on amigurumi. And I just put one of these in each foot, because once you cinch it up, they're not super big, and you can also shape them to the shape of your amigurumi. So say the leg is like this big, you can put your rice in there all on one side and kind of fold it and just put it in. So you can really shape this to the size you want. And even if it's too small, you could put more than one. So we could do 2 organza bags with rice or beans in them and put them in here. And I never glued these down when I put rice in them. I just put them in and put polyfill. I put like a thin layer of polyfill and then put these, and then I stuffed all around and over them with polyfill. And this is just to weight it, because, for example, in the one that I did rice in the legs, it was in the bottom of the legs, sort of like the feet area, and it was so that it could stand. But another option is, which could work also really well for something like this, if you would like to glue it, or you could potentially just put them in there loosely, would be pebbles or little rocks from the dollar store. So I happen to have these ones, but you could use those little glass bead, little see-through like glass rocks that they have at the Dollar Tree for like aquariums, that are like these little smooth rocks, and you could put these in the bottom, and you could either put them in loosely with polyfill, or you could glue them to the bottom. And these are river rocks, so let me show you the texture. And this is going to be sort of the same type of thing that you're going to see at the dollar store for those aquarium bead, or aquarium. I don't know why I want to keep saying beads. Those aquarium rocks. But these I think would work really well because they're light, but they're heavy enough. They're not going to weigh down the bottom of your amigurumi so much that, it's like sagging, but they're light enough, but yet heavy enough to weight it down compared to just polyfill. So you could just put some glue, hot glue on the bottom, and scatter these around the bottom, and it would weight it down nicely. So those are some ideas if you would like to weight it down. You also do not have to weight it down. But if you would like to make sure that it for sure stands and you don't have to worry about balance issues, then you could weight it down. So that is an option for you. And if you would like to, especially if you're planning on gluing it, I would recommend doing that now. You don't need to start adding polyfill yet, but if you want to glue something to the bottom, I would recommend doing it before we start doing our decrease rounds. Okay, and I went ahead and chose to try doing rocks this time because I've never used rocks. So I hot glued this many rocks to the bottom of it. And by the way, this is also very accessible because you could just go out to your own garden or yard or park or literally wherever is close by and convenient and grab some pebbles and do this. So all I did was hot glue them until I got a nice little weight to the bottom of it and spread them out. And I think it'll be perfect. So if you would like to do that, go ahead. And then we will move right along. So for this next step, we are going to start decreasing. So we're going to single crochet into that first stitch. And then we're going to single crochet into the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3, which actually brings us to a total of 4 because we single crocheted into that first stitch. Now we're going to do a decrease, and because we're doing amigurumi, I like to do an invisible decrease. Now to do an invisible decrease, you use only the front loops. So kind of like when we were back here and we did back loop only, this time we're going to do front loop only. And to show you what the front loop only is, here is the whole stitch that you normally work under when you're single crocheting, or, just in general when you're crocheting. And this right here is just the front loop. Okay, so this right here is just the back loop, and this right here is just the front loop. So we're going to work under only this front loop. We're going to go under the front loop only. Sorry about my cat. We're going to go under the front loop only, and then not pulling up a loop. We're actually going to go right under the second front loop only of the next stitch. We're going to go under its front loop only, which will give us a total of 3 loops on our hook. And then we'll yarn over and pull through all 3. I'm going to show you that one more time. Make sure that you can see what I'm doing. Let me make sure it's focused. Okay, so front loop only in both of these, and we're doing a decrease, which means we're turning 2 stitches into 1 stitch. So we go under just the front loop only, don't pull up a loop or anything, and then go under just the front loop only of the next stitch. Then you can yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And there you go. That is an invisible decrease. So we are gonna, for this round, repeat 4 single crochets and then a decrease. So there's 3 and 4 and then an invisible decrease. So front loop only, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And you're just going to repeat that all the way around for this round. So 4 single crochets, 1 invisible decrease, all the way back to the stitch marker. And once you work your way back around, you'll end on a decrease. And then we are just going to do 2 more rounds of single crochets. So you can go ahead and pop that stitch marker back into your first stitch, work your way back around to it, and then work your way back around to it one more time, and we will meet back up and tackle the next step. So go ahead and do your single crochets. All right, and now that you have finished your 2 rounds of single crochets, we are going to do 3 single crochets and then an invisible decrease. So go ahead and do your first single crochet and pop your stitch marker back in and work your additional 2 to equal 3 single crochets in total. And then we're going to do that invisible decrease. So go ahead and do your front loop onlys for your decrease and continue around. Okay, and now that you have finished your 3 single crochets and your decrease, we are really starting to form up our body here. We're going to go ahead and do 1 round of single crochets, and then we'll come back and we'll start to add a little bit of polyfill. So go ahead and begin your round. We're going to do 1 row of single crochet, and then we will go ahead and begin to pop a little bit of polyfill in there, and we will stuff as we go for the rest of the body. So you are almost done with your body. And just single crochet all the way around until you get back to your stitch marker. Alright, and now that you have worked that round of single crochet, we can go ahead and pull up on our hook so we give ourselves a little bit of slack and take the hook out. And we're going to go ahead and start adding polyfill. Now, the reason that we're going to start adding polyfill now instead of waiting until we've cinched up a little bit more and then just kind of shoving it all in is so that we can shape it a little bit. So we want to make sure that we get in all of the, like all around the bottom corners. Because if you try to wait till the last minute to add your polyfill, one moment. Okay, as I was saying, you don't want to wait to begin to stuff it, because if you do that, that's when you end up with your amigurumi not wanting to sit right, because this does have a flat bottom, and it won't be perfectly flat because it's a plushy. It's going to, you know, be stuffed. It's going to bubble up a little bit. But if you try to just shove it all in, you're going to not get it in all of the little, you know, nooks and crannies, the little corners. So right now what I'm doing is I'm just stuffing around the edges, all the way around the edges, and making sure it really gets in all of those spots. And at this point, we don't need to stuff it all the way up. You can if you'd like to. I won't stuff it all the way up just yet, because then when I'm crocheting, I'll start catching polyfill with my hook. But I am just going around and making sure that all of the crevices in the bottom have a nice layer of polyfill. That way, as this hole gets smaller and my hand doesn't fit inside anymore, I can just add my stuffing and it'll fill up the area that we're working at, but the bottom will still be nice and shaped. So just go ahead and, with your stuffing of choice, go ahead and work on stuffing it a little bit. Amigurumi is also a perfect time to use up yarn scraps. So if you would like to, you can incorporate yarn scraps. You can use just yarn scraps. I would recommend using a little bit of polyfill if you have it, but you can use just yarn scraps. And what I mean by yarn scraps is, if you make a lot of amigurumi, you probably have something like this. I have a bag of yarn scraps right here, is what I'm showing you. So if you have something like this, where it's a lot of little pieces of yarn, which you're not really going to want to, you know, tie together little pieces that are like 2 inches long, this is a perfect opportunity. You can add them into the middle if you want to keep that polyfill kind of feel to it. But use up some of these yarn scraps so that you don't have to throw them away. Now, down here in the middle would be a perfect time to add some in. So I'm just going to reach into the depths of here and grab out a handful. And you'll notice some of these are really short. Some of these are like literally just teeny tiny little pieces. And I'll stick some in there. And now they'll be mixed in with the polyfill. No one will even know they're in there. And I'm reusing pieces that wouldn't have any other use. So go ahead and finish filling this up as much as you would like to, and then we will meet up and go ahead and begin to crochet the rest of our body. All right, and I have stuffed this nicely as far as I want to for now, and I'll continue to add stuffing as we go. But I'm just going to go ahead and insert my hook back into this loop that we pulled up and tighten it back down. And we are going to do, what were we at? We are going to do 2 single crochets and a decrease. So that's going to be our repeat for the round. So go ahead and pop that stitch marker out and throw a single crochet in and replace it. And then work that second single crochet. And then work that invisible decrease. So front loop, yarn over and pull through, and yarn over and pull through. And then just repeat. And when you are finished with this round, go ahead and meet me back, and we will continue. Moving right along. We are getting real close to the end of our body here. We are going to go ahead and do 2 rounds of single crochets. So go ahead and pop that stitch marker back in, single crochet your way back around to it, and pop it out one more time, single crochet your way back around to it. And once you have done that, I will meet you back and let you know what we do next. So 2 rounds of single crochets. All right, after you have your 2 rounds of single crochets, just make sure that you're stuffing it as you go along. We are going to go ahead and do 1 single crochet and a decrease, and that is going to be our repeat for the round. So 1 single crochet, replacing that stitch marker, And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a decrease, invisible decrease. So front loop only, yarn over, pull through, and yarn over and pull through. So just one single crochet and a decrease, and repeat it all the way around till you get back to your stitch marker. Okay, and once you've made your way back to your stitch marker, are you ready? Are you ready to do the last stitches of your body? Well, I hope you are, because this is the last round. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do decreases. So only the front loops. Just like we've been doing, that's an invisible decrease. Go ahead and throw your stitch marker back in there, and we are literally just going to decrease our way all the way around. So we're going to effectively have how many stitches are on here by decreasing over every stitch of the round. And that's all we're doing for this round. And we're just going to work our way back to the stitch marker. And then we're going to want to make sure we have it nice and stuffed. So you're going to want to make sure you've got it stuffed nice and firm, if that's how you prefer. I know some people, have different preferences. I like to personally stuff my amigurumi pretty tightly. So if you would like it stuffed tightly like I do, make sure that you stuff it nice and firmly, really pack in that stuffing. And then we will close up the hole. All right, and for our last decrease, bada boom, bada bang. There we have it, folks. So what we're going to do at this point is, you can pull up on this a little bit if you'd like, and then you can go ahead and cut your tail, leaving a long enough tail so you can sew this closed. You really don't need much. Just like less than a foot. But you can leave as much as you'd like. If you'd prefer to leave more, it makes you feel more comfortable, then you can definitely do that. Then you can just go ahead and pull up on this hook and pull that yarn through. And there you go. This is ready to sew shut, and I'm going to go ahead and grab my stuffing and finish stuffing this nice and firmly, and then I will show you how to close up the body. So my recommendation is, it's always going to be more stuffing than you think you need. I'm going to go ahead and pop the stitch marker out. And I'm just going to work with small pieces of stuffing at a time. And you can either use your finger to stuff them into the hole, or you can use a polyfill stick, or, whatever you want if you have something else that you prefer to use. But the polyfill stick is actually perfect for this stage of stuffing the amigurumi, because you can just kind of stick it over the hole and then use the polyfill stick to work it down in there. This is also a useful tool for shaping your stuffing when you're working in a small area. You can stab around inside of there and put it into the spots that you're wanting it into. So once you're happy with your stuffing, we'll go ahead and close up this hole. And then I will also show you some little techniques for getting your amigurumi to sit the way that you want it to. And if it feels uneven on different sides, I'll show you how to kind of shape it with your hands. But go ahead and continue to stuff your gnome body until you are happy with it. And I think I'm about happy with mine. But go ahead and pause here if you're still working on it, and then I will meet you back and we can continue on the next step. So now that you have stuffed your body until you were satisfied with it, go ahead and grab a yarn needle, and it can be whatever your preferred yarn needle is. I'm going to use this one this time, partially because the color is contrasting so that you can see it, but also this is a nice one to use for yarn. These little ends like this, the little loops, are good for holding yarn while you're sewing. And you can get these on Amazon. That's where I got mine. It was just part of a little pack of darning needles. And you can look them up, darning needles or yarn needles, if you're interested in looking them up on Amazon. You can also use a normal needle for this. I would use as big a one as you can find if you're using a normal sewing needle. Maybe like if you have a set of needles, like a carpet needle or something might work. You just might have a little trouble threading your yarn through it. So what we're going to do here is you're going to find the first stitch, and if you left your stitch marker in, then that might be a little bit easier, but just find the first stitch, and you're going to go under the front loops only, and you're going to go through. Try not to catch your polyfill. If you need to, kind of stick your finger here to hold it down, just so that you don't have to deal with the polyfill being on your yarn. And you're going to pull it, but don't pull it tight. Just pull it until it's, comfortably sitting there, but, not extra yarn. So like that. We're not going to pull it tight yet. And we're just going to work our way all the way around in every front loop of the single crochets that you've got here. And you should have, I believe, 8 single crochets or 8 front loop onlys that you're working through right now. Okay, and that one, and then I think there's one more right there. So after you work through that last stitch, and this held this very nicely, really good for velvet yarn since it can be slippery. So that was a good choice of needle for this, but you can use any yarn needle. Actually, I'll show you a few different ways that they can look. I apologize for that. I meant to mute that. They can look like this. Little plastic ones. They can look like this, the bent tip needle ones. So there's quite a few different ways that they can look, and they will all get the job done pretty much the same. It's just up to preference. Okay, so once you've gone through all of those front loop onlys, you're going to take your yarn and you're going to pull it, and like magic, it's all gone. It's all closed. Isn't that cool? So now that you've got that pulled nice and tight and it closed up your amigurumi, I guess you'd call this kind of an egg shape at the moment, we can go ahead and just kind of weave this yarn around a few times. No rhyme or reason, just kind of weaving in the tail, securing it a little bit, going back and forth. You can do this as many times or as few times as you want. I'm just going to do it this many times. And then go ahead and stab into here and pop out somewhere kind of far away. And don't pull too tight or you're going to do that, how it kind of dipped in. But if you do that, you can just reach in and pull it up with your hook. And then, boom, just as good as new. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hold this taunt and cut it. And then when you're working with velvet yarn, it tends to, at the ends, do this. So just make sure you grab any little pieces that decide to come off. And then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of massage around right here. And it just pops that little tail piece back in, and look, you can't tell it all anymore. So that is how you work your body. And then if you've got any little loose pieces of the velvet yarn that fell off, just grab them. If you've got any polyfill that got stuck to your yarn while you were working, you can just use your fingers to grab it. Or if you would like to be able to do it a little easier, you can grab some tweezers and you can just grab the polyfill pieces that are sticking up. Just like that. So I hope that you enjoyed working on the body with me today. We are going to be back tomorrow with the next step of our crochet along for our Santa gnome. Oh, right. I wanted to show you some ways to shape it and help it to sit how you want it to. So if you're finding that it's not sitting the way that you want it to, you can kind of put your hands around it and sort of squeeze and then push down, like push down nice and firm, and it'll kind of push the polyfill down into a flatness so that it sits a little bit better. And if you're finding that one side is lumpy or not shaped the same as the rest of it, going like this and kind of working it, and you can work it kind of quickly if you'd like to, you can manipulate the shape of it. This is also going to make it a little bit taller. So taller and less flat on the bottom. And then if you do that and then you want it to be flat on the bottom, the reason I wrap my hands around it before squishing it down is to try to keep it kind of even all the way around and then just kind of squish it down. And that's going to give you that more egg shape. So hopefully that was helpful. Obviously, the primary way that you're going to shape it is when you're putting your polyfill in, but those are ways that you can kind of manipulate it after you've already closed it up and your amigurumi is finished. All right, well, I will see you guys for the next part of the crochet along, and I hope to see you there, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Please leave a comment if you watched this far, and let me know what you think so far. See you guys later.